Alright, in this video, I want to compare England and France at the start date and who might be better to play. So, for this video, for the background, I decided to play England because this is probably my first and second time playing England ever. Like, not the United Kingdom, I played as Scotland before, a couple times, but as England proper. Anyway, that should probably already tell you I kind of favor France, just by the amount of times I played England, but England and France both have pretty decent situations on how to survive and be good at the start date. So first, let's cover England's advantage. First of all, there's Burgundy. That should be pretty obvious. You could just maybe ally with a Burgundy player, and you might be okay. But then again, France does have allies. But for now, we'll just stick with the England section instead of covering France. Anyway, for Burgundy, the best strategy to get France out of the war would be to carpet siege the areas in northern France to try and decrease the amount of land France has to eventually do anything with. And then maybe try and take Paris. Again, this is circumstantial, because if France does have a big army and is planning to ally a nation like Spain to the south, because Spain usually finishes Aragon pretty quickly from my experiences, so if they ally Spain to the south, then you might have a bigger trouble to deal with than just southern France versus Burgundy and England together. So just keep that in mind that Paris is not always the province you want to go for, because it's like Russia. Paris, getting the capital doesn't mean you have to surrender immediately. But regardless, England is still in a decent position because, again, you could ally Aragon, dragging Spain earlier into the war, which would maybe decrease France's advantage. But then again, France could counter this with a Dutch alliance, say, or maybe an Italian one. But then again, Italy would probably not be that enthusiastic about allying France. Anyway, quick side note, I think this is pretty good for roughly 1500 borders. I got it before the rebels popped up, but the rebels get cleaned up, don't worry. Anyway, so that covers England basically. Unless there's some other small players like Brittany, then okay, fine, ally them if you want to. But that basically covers up England. Now let's cover France. For France, I'd favor it more than England, but you're still not in a perfect position. England does have only 4 provinces in its biggest cluster of land in France, and that means it may be harder for them to spawn troops, or if they do spawn troops, and spawn the other one in Calais for the 5 per thing. Like clicking Control and Alt, that's how you get 5 when you spawn it from memory. You'd end up with a divided army. Now, as France, what you could do to exploit this is to try and get the army in Calais, to try and remove it before it may become a threat. But Burgundy is also a country to keep note of, so you might get distracted by Burgundy, which in that case, it might be a little bit harder to do that. So, if the divide and conquer strategy doesn't work in northern France, what you could do is, other than, getting mercenaries, which that might help you pretty well against the English end of Burgundians. You might be able to hold a 1v1 with them. But the ratio between England and Burgundy compared to you is more of a 1.5 to 2. So England would still be favored with Burgundy helping. At least in my opinion. But there's still one thing to note. Iberia. France has a really good situation with Iberia because they're basically natural allies with the Spanish. So, Spain may have some vested interests in allying with France, especially if Aragon's already cleaned up, which Spain usually does pretty early in the game. Meaning, if you lose, say, Paris, because England and Burgundy think it's a really good idea to rush Paris for some reason, and think they'll end the war somehow, then you could just chill out in, say, Toulouse and make it even more costly for them to attack you, even though you may still lose that battle between England and Burgundy versus your forces in Toulouse, assuming you lost the battle in northern France already. Then you could just ask for Spanish resistance and bring their forces up, and assuming they'd be equal to, say, England with a little bit more, then you'd be in a slightly favorable position to win that war, in my opinion. So that's a general overview. There is still some stuff I'm not mentioning, like a Scotland maybe allying with France and attacking from the north, which could maybe divert some attention away, which would benefit France even more. Also Norway, which might want to keep its provinces, but then again, probably not because it's just like two islands basically. And there's also one in England's favor, Austria. Austria does own one province in France, but then again, it's just one province. I doubt the Austrian player is actually going to have like a whole stick up with France over one province and just sell it instead and get some money. But there is one region I'm basically just avoiding as I know, which is Italy. Italy would be pretty good for an England player, but the thing is, Italy is more fighting between itself than like caring about France that much early game. And I don't blame them, they have like a lot of neighbors in Italy. But that's just how the game's set up. There's some exterior factors like Tunisia, Morocco, and those might be slightly leaning to the English, but then again, you have the Italy problem, they're probably trying to do something else. So that's the full review, in my opinion, of England versus France at the start date. I do marginally favor France, even if England could maybe spawn some more troops. France is just in a better diplomatic situation than England is. Well, practical diplomatic situation, I should say. Because you gotta remember, the game isn't just, oh, you spawn army. It's more than that. Like, for winning. Anyway, that's basically the end of the video. See ya.